The news. We never liked it growing up. Back then, it was just boring. But now we hate it. Not because we suddenly became wiser or more rebellious, but because we saw the cracks. We realized how easily truth can be twisted, how effortlessly narratives can be shaped. It wasn't the fabrications that disturbed us, it was the precision. The most effective lies are never complete fabrications. They are distortions, half-truths, narratives woven together in ways that blur the line between reality and fiction. But perhaps I should refine my words. I don't hate the news. I hate misinformation. Because misinformation doesn't just obscure truth. It replaces it. It seeps into history, rewriting it before our very eyes. It turns whispers into wars, rumors into revolutions, and villains into heroes. And in an age where more people than ever can discern truth from lies, one thing remains clear. The most effective misinformation doesn't manipulate. It inspires. It tells us what we want to hear. It arms us with certainty. It makes us feel like we're standing on the right side of history, when in reality, we're just standing in the shadow of someone else's pen. And if there's any world that understands this better than ours, it's One Piece. For its vibrancy, for all its adventure, One Piece has always hidden something darker beneath the surface. I think this is something that has become somewhat of a famous line coming from me. The mechanisms of power, the cycles of oppression, the weight of inherited will, these themes define the world order has built. But there's one force that quietly influences them all. A force we often overlook. The media. Look closely and you'll see it. From the fall of Alabasta, to the lies that shaped Wano, from Big Mom's pursuit of Luffy, to the chaos surrounding Sabo at Marijoa. Information, or rather the manipulation of it, has been the catalyst for some of One Piece's most pivotal events. And at the center of it all stands one figure, Big News Morgans. A king without a kingdom, a journalist without allegiance, a storyteller who understands that in a world of chaos, the truth isn't what happened. It's what people believe happened. To what end? That I don't know. And maybe that's the most terrifying part. Because unlike the Marines, unlike the Celestial Dragons, Morgans doesn't seem bound by ideology. He isn't a revolutionary fighting for freedom. He isn't a tyrant clinging to control. He is something far more dangerous. An opportunist with a printing press. How often have you heard this? Experts have said. Studies suggest. Sources confirm. This is the language of control. The illusion of consensus. The idea that because something has been said enough times, it must be true. This is how we're conditioned to believe, how we're conditioned to obey. And in One Piece, this conditioning is everywhere. Take Luffy. To us, he's the hero of the story, the man who freed Alabasta, who liberated Dressrosa, who broke the chains that bound Wano. But what does the world see? A criminal, a warmonger, a name whispered in fear by those who only know what the headlines tell them, because the truth is irrelevant if no one believes it. That's what makes Morgan so powerful. He doesn't need an army. He doesn't need haki. His influence isn't drawn from strength, but from something far more insidious, control over perception. Consider the events of Marijoa. Sabo, once a shadow in the revolutionary army, has now become a symbol, a hero, a figurehead for those who dare to stand against the world government. But did he choose that role? Or was it given to him? Morgans chose the narrative. He spun the story. He took a moment of rebellion and turned it into a movement. And in doing so, he changed the course of history. Not with a blade, not with a battle, but with ink on a page. What makes Morgans unique isn't that he lies. It's that he tells the truth selectively. He understands what the world wants to believe, and he delivers it. The world government suppresses the truth. Morgan's manipulates it. One silences voices, the other amplifies the right ones. And in that way, he is both an enemy and an ally to the powers that be. He has no loyalty, no ideology, no moral compass guiding his hand. And yet, somehow, he always seems to be on the winning side. Because at the end of the day, it isn't the strongest who shape the world. It's the ones who write about them. We like to think we're different, that we've moved past the days where information was controlled by a few, that the internet with its endless stream of perspectives has freed us from the grip of propaganda. But has it? Has it really? Because if the world of One Piece teaches us anything, it's that misinformation isn't about control, it's about belief. And belief is powerful. It starts wars, it topples governments, it builds heroes and creates villains. This isn't fiction, it's history. Think back to any major event, any war, any revolution. How many of them began with a lie? One of the most infamous examples of media-driven misinformation is the Spanish-American War of 1898. A war that might not have happened at all if not for the press. At the time, two newspaper tycoons, William Randolph Hearst and Joseph Pulitzer, were engaged in a ruthless competition. Their papers weren't just reporting the news, they were creating it. They sensationalized stories, exaggerated facts, and in some cases fabricated entire events just to sell more papers. And then on February 15th, 1898, the USS Maine exploded in Havana Harbor. Nearly 270 American sailors lost their lives. The cause? Unclear. But that didn't matter. Within hours, Hearst's newspapers were running headlines blaming Spain. Remember the Maine, to hell with Spain. The phrase spread like wildfire, igniting a public fury that pushed the US into war. No real investigation was done. No definitive evidence was ever presented that Spain was responsible. But by the time the truth became irrelevant, America had declared war. The war was short, Spain was defeated, the US gained control of Cuba, the Philippines, Guam, and Puerto Rico. And what about the Maine? Years later, official reports would suggest that the explosion was likely caused by an internal malfunction, not an external attack. But by then, history had already been written. This is the power of media. It doesn't just inform, it directs. It doesn't just shape opinions, it shapes outcomes. And the Spanish-American War was far from the last time a manipulated narrative led to real-world consequences. From the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which escalated the Vietnam War, to the weapons of mass destruction narrative that justified the Iraq invasion. History is filled with moments where misinformation didn't just mislead, it killed. And today in the digital age, it's only become more sophisticated. We no longer need newspaper tycoons to twist the truth. Now, algorithms do it for us. Information is tailored, refined, packaged into bite-sized narratives that confirm what we already believe. The illusion of consensus is stronger than ever. Big News Morgans exists, just not as a bird. So, what do we do with this knowledge? Do we reject every story, question every headline, assume that everything is a lie? No. That's not wisdom, that's paranoia. But we should recognize the game. In One Piece, Morgans understand something fundamental. People don't want the truth. They want a truth they can use. The world government suppresses information because control is their greatest asset. Morgans releases it selectively because chaos is his. And in our world, governments, corporations, influencers, journalists, all of them play the same game. Some silence, some amplify. But in the end, all of them are shaping the narrative for a purpose. The question isn't whether or not you're being manipulated. The question is, to what end? And more importantly, Who benefits from what you believe?